Hello, Cancer, you crab, you crab. I just had a thought back to when I did your all signs rune reading. And I was like, wait, I already did Cancer. Like, they were in between shells and living life without it. A little more raw, maybe. A little more vulnerable, maybe. A little less overly self protected, a little bit more open. But that was the all signs video, not your specifically individuated, the Fruma Healing Oracle deck message. So it's taken me a while to get to you, Cancer. It's also taken me a while to get to Gemini, Capricorn, and Aries. So, but you're the first of the last, so that has to count for something. You're the first of your group. Maybe for some of you, even the first of your kind, the first of something maybe in your family, because Cancer is an energy like families and homes, maybe mothers and something. Maybe there's like a generational pattern that you're breaking. Maybe your mother did something some way, or your mother's mother did it some way. But you feel guided, led, called to do it in a different way. As you are, it feels like, I'm not going to say that you're encountering challenge. I'll say that if you are encountering challenge, maybe you'll also wonder sometimes if it would be easier to do it in another way. If it would be easier to take the path that's already been foraged and paved and everything else. But with a path that firmly and repeatedly trodden, there may be resources. It feels like it's like there may be diminished resources. If the resources are naturally renewed and naturally recurring, maybe there are some more, but if they're not, or if they've been overly used and consumed, then you might actually feel a little bit more difficulty. So maybe it's one of those once you know you can't unknow types of things. Once you start something, you can go back, but you already know what you know. So maybe it'll resonate for you, maybe it won't. Let's see if we continue on that line or go down a whole other thread. The Fruma, what do you have for Cancer? Also, I ended up using a different background for all four of the signs. So you get this side. I wasn't going to use this side, but then I was like, it feels right. Okay. Oop. Oh. All right, Cancer. Now you're getting a little greedy. You're getting a little greedy. Elks in reverse, Candle, Brahm, and Wordhammer all upright. Candle 42. Brahm 52, I'm sure, because I see this card all the time. Wordhammer 40. Wordhammer is interesting. Oh, where did that come from? Okay. Wordhammer is interesting. This might continue along that line. It might be a little different Cancer. Wordhammer is interesting, though, because 12th is the rune of staticness. But here lately, Wordhammer has been feeling like the rune of being stagnant. Because all of the traditional runes can be contained within this one. This is like, it is the all rune. All runes can be traced in this one rune, and so it feels like it's the limit. The Wordhammer is the 9 of the runes. But then in the Fruma, we go beyond the traditional Elder Futhark, right? And so we get these runes that have curves in them, like Brahm, and literally only Brahm. Brahm is the only one that came out. Brahm doesn't fit in Wordhammer. You can make a similage of it, and that would give you Treadle, which is this. This Elks in reverse is not Brahm. These are two completely different energies. And so there's something, it rounds out. So you are going beyond Cancer. you're breaking the 9. And what you find after 9 isn't 10. You find a different 10 after 9. You find a 10 that isn't the beginning of another cycle. You find a 10 that is the next step beyond what you thought possible. Your base is different. This Ur and Elks, this feels like the challenge where you go off the beaten path. Oh my goodness, so many notification noises. 1 second while I mute these, but also see why my mother texted me. Oh, she laughed at a link I sent her. Okay. Give me one moment, Cancer. I'm gonna fix the lighting so that you can see the cards. I'm gonna pause it so you don't have to wait, but I'm just letting you know that I'm pausing it. Okay, so this is better. I accidentally kicked my little table and I shifted the whole spread. And when it was paused, I couldn't tell if there we go. It's in a good place. I couldn't tell where the light was because it was paused and it was like the screen is paused. But we don't get that glare. I mean, it was on candle. It would make sense. So you're forging a trail of light that sweeps away darkness. This light that this is a darkness in light. So I was going to say this isn't a darkness, like shadow. It's the light that you're bringing is a light of awareness, is a light of consciousness into a space where there was only unconsciousness, subconsciousness, or the unknown. So this darkness in the light, it can be an energy of like there were things that you thought you knew, you were so sure were correct, actual, factual things, but then you discover that the things that you thought you knew, you don't actually know. That's one way to take it. It can also be taken as almost like a toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is the easiest way to put it, but it's almost like it feels like there was something so maybe easy about doing things another way that it was also easy to overlook something that wasn't right, something that was out of place. It's almost like there was a kernel of mistruth in a truth, hidden inside of a truth, but the mistruth was positioned so that it played a dominant role. It makes me think of like when you're doing a math problem, but you forget to flip a sign. So like the answer comes out negative instead of positive, or it comes out positive instead of negative. But somewhere along the way, you forgot to carry something. Like maybe you forgot to carry the 1, or you forgot to carry a negative sign. And so like you're working through the problem and it's like 1 minus 2, da 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 da, 1 minus 2, da 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 da. You go down the line. Now it's like, or you move it and it's like 1 plus 2, da 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 da. Like that plus was a minus at some point. You lost it in all of the work, and so it completely flips your answer. It's that kind of energy, Cancer. It flips your answer, Cancer. I'm sorry. I apologize. I usually don't. I actually mean it today. 42, 52, 40, 42. No, 42, 42. And then 15. 15 is one short of this 52. It's one short of being the mirror for 52. I kind of like this. With this 52, with this 51, with this 15 being in reverse, being one short of the mirror of 52, it mirrored itself. It flipped itself. And so now it's like a 51-52. So this comes before this. So that it just brings an energy of like, you have to step outside of something before you can see it to know that it needs to be cleaned up. Right? It's like it's not until you zoom out, or it's not until you aren't so far in the mess that you realize that there actually was a mess. And again, it feels like it's alluding to this darkness and the light, this seed or a kernel of mistruth inside of a truth that completely flips something, or that keeps you from being able to clearly see something. That's the bottom of the deck. We'll look at that later. I had to make sure I pressed resume recording for a second. I was like, oh, I hope I'm recording. Yeah, so now I'm going to use the Yggdrasil to see if there is a god, goddess figure that wants to co-sign, validate, or steer this moving forward. And then I have the Crow Tarot and the Runic Tarot. I'm feeling called to the Runic Tarot, but it feels like I'm supposed to use the Runic Tarot, but I'm supposed to think that I'm supposed to use the Crow Tarot, if that makes any sense. It's like I'm guided to use the Runic Tarot, but something is like, oh, use the Crow Tarot. So I would say you're Cancer, you're a water sign, you're intuitive. Don't forget your intuition. It may come a time for you where you're learning to separate your intuition from what's been instilled in you. And maybe there was a time and place where your intuition and what was instilled in you lined up, but now the paths may be diverging. Something is rounding out, or it's smoothing out. The shapes are shifting and bending in ways that the previous it's like the previous matrix, your previous way of thinking, living, learning, breathing, eating, sleeping, everything, literally everything, before it can't accommodate how these are now going to be sort of moving. And maybe that's why you have to step off of the path before you can clean it. It's almost like if you have to paint the floor and you're standing on the floor, you can never paint the spot that you're standing on. And we're assuming that you can't wait for it to dry and then just step on dry paint, right? It's like you're in a box and you have to paint everything. Then you end up more or less painting yourself into a corner. But instead of painting, it's like cleaning. You can never clean something that's right under you because you so firmly believed it to be true, or because it was so firmly instilled within you. And it feels like that could have affected relationships with people and yourself, of course. But it's almost like it brings to mind, like, if you grow up experiencing certain relationship dynamics in a certain type of way, then it's like even when you're an adult, there's a part of you that knows that that's not how you're supposed to treat people. But since that was the only thing you witnessed, or since it was instilled in you from the point where you were so impressionable, from the point where you didn't know any better, you never think to question it. It's that kind of energy. When you didn't know, it's all that you did know. But now you've developed and you've matured, you've healed, you've grown to the point where you can look at it again and find the flaws in it. That's the darkness and the light type of energy. So who? And like one person would be lovely because there's already 6 runes on the table. If we're going off of intuition, Cancer, I feel like there's such thing like this. It's not the one that I would think to go for. I would immediately go for this one in particular, because it sticks out the most. I'll go for this one. Gird, artfulness. She is the 8th of the 3rd realm of Alfheim. Bottom of the deck is Thiassi, aging, maturing, and healing, who is the 8th of the 2nd realm. From the 8th of the 2nd realm of Jotunheim to the 8th of the 3rd realm of Alfheim. So it's almost like you're maintaining your position. You're maintaining your relative position, but the environment is changing. And again, I'm going to go for the Runic Tarot. I feel like it would be really easy to fall into that because it just happened where it's like, well, like if I'm supposed to do the thing that I'm not supposed to do, if I think I'm supposed to use the Runic Tarot, then maybe I'm actually supposed to use the Crow Tarot. It's one of those, whenever your methodology is to zig when they say zag or to go left when they tell you to go right, if you're not dealing, if you're dealing with someone of a significant amount of intelligence, with a nearly basic level of observational acuity or an observational skill. If someone can tell that every time they say zig, you zag, every time they say go left, you go right, it's like you're not as hard to manipulate as you think. Because then they'll just tell you to zag if they want you to zig. And they know that you'll do it because your whole decision-making process is do the opposite. This is why, again, your intuition is so important. This is why connecting with your intuition and utilizing the element of water that you are is so important. Because then you become unmanipulable. Because your spirit will always communicate with you through your intuition which path is the path to take. Which path is the path for you to take, more specifically. Like reverse psychology has been a thing for a very, 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 very long time. It is very, very well known. And some parents use it to get their kids to do things that they know their kids don't want to do. It's like, well, don't eat your broccoli. I'm like, I'm going to eat my broccoli. And then, the parent is like, oh, you sure showed me eating all your vegetables like that. Wow, you're such a rebel. And I don't mean to be condescending, but it feels like it can easily fall into that energy if you aren't in tune with what matters. If your intuition is saying this person has questionable motives or this organization doesn't have your best of interest at heart, and if your logical mind says, okay, well then do the opposite, assuming that they're not idiots. I was trying to avoid saying that earlier. Assuming that you're not dealing with an idiot, it's not that hard to tell when someone always does the opposite. And so it could be easy to still manipulate them. But your intuition will tell you for sure. So I'm going to go with my intuition. Not going to lie, there is a huge, huge, huge part of me that wants to pull the Crow Tarot, see what that would say, pull the Runic Tarot, see what that would say, and then compare. But these readings aren't meant to be that long. And don't look at me and be like, who was it? Leo? Not Leo. Sagittarius got like a whole hour. Well, that's because Sagittarius was being difficult. Is that Sagittarius is 9? Yeah. Because I was like, Sagittarius, what is going on? This doesn't usually happen. Like, usually you're fairly easy to read. But that's because Sagittarius was like the world in that reading, and it's easiest to draw the parallel to be like, oh, like the galactic center is in Sagittarius, so like it makes sense. Gerd, oh, literally open the page right to her. That doesn't happen too often. Gerd or Gerther, artfulness. Gerther is wife to Freyr and daughter of the giant Gemir. Gerther is seen as an earth goddess, although her roots lie in Jotunheimer. She is placed in Alfheimer, as that is where she lives alongside her husband. Freyr is the brother of Freya. Gerther was seen as a goddess of cultivated land. Her name means enclosure, and she might be seen as a goddess of what is fenced in or designated, such as farmland or field in the olden days. On a broader note, she brings an element of protection. She is the enclosure that keeps the unwanted out and protects what is within. In the spread, she offers protection for the seeker. She is not without vulnerability, though. Under threat, she gave in to Skirnir's threat of magic. When Freyr sees Gerther, he becomes intensely lovesick and sends his servant Skirnir to convey his message of love to her. Gerther is reluctant at first, even when offered precious gifts. She is eventually persuaded under the threat of 3 magic stabs of Othal, restlessness, ergi, aggravation, and ivy, madness. So she was under the threat of restlessness, aggravation, and madness. It sounds like insomnia. They do enjoy a happy union, and if they show up together in the spread, they reinforce the notion of growth and fertility in human endeavor. While Gerther is goddess of protection, she also stands for beauty, for what is attractive, naturally charming, and artful in appearance. The card indicates a natural beauty surrounding the seeker's endeavor and can also indicate artfulness in an isolated undertaking relating to home and family, as well as what is enclosed near the seeker's heart. So there's your home and family Cancerian energy. Bottom of the deck is Thiassi, aging, maturing, and healing again in Jotunheim. Love that. We're going to pull you. Bragi, the 7th of the first realm, is under that. So we don't get this. We don't maintain the 8 here, but we do go 3, 2, 1 in terms of realms. Ooh, girl. Hold up. Things are a little twisted. It's twisted. It's contradicted. Hold up. Hold up. Something ain't something. There we go. It might have been when I moved things accidentally, but I'm not. It's fine. It's the artfulness of Gerd that made me look, and I was like, ooh, this is not aesthetically pleasing. Like, why is it crooked? Why is it slanting? Oh gosh. I pulled this because Thiassi is in Jotunheim. This is where her roots are. So her roots are in aging, maturing, and healing. But she comes into, it's almost like an exaltation for some reason. It's making me think like she's exalted in aging, or she's exalted in artfulness. She's domicile in aging, maturing, and healing. But being exalted in artfulness, it feels like there's a certain amount of creative liberty that you get access to when you go beyond what was traditionally considered to be your limitations, your limits, your boundaries, your borders, your barriers. Again, and we start with Brahm. So Brahm being the only card that doesn't fit this mold, again, it's like you have to turn that protection of the familiarity. You have to turn that sense of comfort and familiarity off to venture out and explore. And once you broaden your horizons, you start to see all the things that you can do. The good news is you've healed enough to really participate in it. That feels like you're going to be the chariot. I'm always like, why is Cancer the chariot? I don't get it. I don't get a lot of things, girl. Just because I don't get it don't mean it don't make sense. Just because it don't make sense to me, don't mean it don't make sense to somebody. Because it's like now you can be fully, genuinely, truly that chariot energy. You can forge your own path. You can go your own way. Creatively. That creativity of that, it feels like, it's easy to say that feels like it's you tapped into your intuition, but it's more than that because then the process becomes more creative. It feels like you get to live the life that you want to live rather than continuing to read off the script that was given to you at birth. But yeah, all of the maturing, all of the healing, all of the work that you've done, it puts you in a position to be able to genuinely, truly, freely, or genuinely, truly, honestly have those freedoms. And it's interesting that she is everything fenced in, but outside of your protection is Ur, the untamable, the wild ox, the one that exists outside of the fenced in Feo pen. But it doesn't feel like she loses any of her abundance. The whole world, it's almost like the whole world becomes, it's one of those like the world becomes your oyster types of things. Okay. I feel like I don't really need these. Oop, no, I ain't taking all those. I think that was the Five of Pentacles though. Okay. I feel like I don't really need these, but you know, we'll pull them. I will pull them. Runic Tarot. What do you gotta say? I'll give it 3 more. 2, 1. Bottom of the deck is the 5 of Wands. The card that came out is the Page of Swords. Page of Swords came off in between these two. This to me is really reading like forge your own path, break your own bonds energy. This is her when she's tied up and bound. This is her when she's free. How did she get free? That is a question. That's a great one. Honestly, what it feels like, they're burning her, right? They're about to burn her. But it feels like this single rope, as soon as the rope catches fire, she can break free. And then if she knows to stop, drop, and roll, she'll be fine. There may be some minor burns. But it's almost like the very thing that's being used against her is the same thing that is going to liberate her and set her free. The skies in these two cards are very similar. Oh, I actually kind of like this. And then the Hermit is under there. East, east. There's something within you. It feels like it's almost telling you to like remain calm. This is very like ancestors, guides, guardians, your spirit team. Oh, I was literally just talking about this. No weapon formed against me shall conquer. It's like there are going to be challenges, there are going to be trials, there are going to be tribulations, but know that you are kept. Know that you are not alone. And when you need it the most, you will find it, it will come, you will be free. But it's like the thing that will free you is the same thing that keeps you, I almost want to say enslaved, bound. The thing that will free you is the same thing that keeps you bound, or it's a result of, it comes after. But it feels like the Hermit that was under her, that's an internal knowing. So this is on you, Cancer. When you are free, what do you do? It's very much so like, are you going to use your newfound liberation to go back to everyone that's ever wronged you, to everything that's ever gone wrong, and you're going to prove to them how much they messed up or how much they missed out? Or are you going to live your life free? If you go back, you are still bound. If you go back, they still matter. They still have that hold on you. I mean, I guess that's bold of me to say. It's your choice. Listen to your intuition, discernment, and knowing. You don't have to listen to me. Because for some of you, maybe it is for you to go back. And in that, you show someone else that they too can be liberated, that they too can be free. They did to you what was done to them. They knew no other way. You show them the other way. But in the same token, at the same time, you don't have to go back to show them. You can keep moving forward as well and show them that way. It's a you thing. The Hermit will tell you. But the Hermit in the space of this Five of Wands feels like a very quiet voice. It's almost like it's the voice of reason when you're very emotionally charged. And the water that is the Pisces in me, my first house Taurus moon does not like that. And it doesn't like it, it's like because feelings are valid. You know what I mean? But there is a voice inside of you that's like, do this. It feels like at the last second it's like lean slightly left and something completely like misses you and singes just the ropes and then you're free. But this Page of Swords, it feels like she has returned to the site where she was once bound. And now there is ruin. There is no village. There are no tents. There are no fires. There's nothing. So do with that what you will. Is she the reason why everything got wiped off the map? Or maybe. Sure, she could be. There are some people who will get liberated and then turn vengeful and bitter. And that's turning vengeful and bitter. That's different than going, because you can go back to something out of like compassion. You know what I mean? But that instance, that case will be vengeful and bitterness. It returns to burn down everything that once threatened them. And I don't know how fulfilling uh, a vengeance that is carried out is. I don't know. That's beyond me, girl. On the other hand, it feels like if she chooses that liberation, if she chooses to live for herself and to live artfully, then it's almost like those things, number one, it's almost like they won't even matter once you reach a certain point. With the Page of Swords, it's like from wands to the swords, it's being able to, it interjects a certain element of hindsight. I won't say logic, personally, because I don't like it. But it feels like it gives you hindsight. When you reach a certain point, you can see things. I don't want to say that you can see that they happen for a reason, because that feels like it could be extreme depending on what your specific case is. I feel more comfortable saying you can see how certain events that transpired in your life and how witnessing certain things prepared you to make different choices. And I think that goes back to this doing things a different way, no longer participating in the way that everything used to be. That's when your 10 becomes a step after the 9, or that's when your 10 becomes what exists beyond everything that you know, rather than that 10 being, okay, now you start at the beginning again and we go through this all over. If it's passed down between mothers, now maybe you have a child. And despite what you wanted to do, you can't help but carry forward the worse or the not as great traits, even though you never wanted to do that or be that. You just somehow ended up doing it and being it anyway. Again, it feels like it can be so subtle, so sneaky, so little, so easily overlooked, this darkness and the light. Or you break it. And now, at the very least, there's another example of how to do things. But maybe it's like now the whole line completely changes forever. Because everyone who comes after you and everyone who you interact with, and you may even go up the chain, right? It's the easiest way to communicate this is if it's familial. So like, let's say that you do something differently and at some point you talk to your mother and maybe you find out what your mother went through and what she experienced and why she did things the way that she did it. But now that she's seen you do it, she knows that she can do it. And in some weird way, not so weird, weird, in some way, you help her break that for herself too. So not only does it affect your children and their children and their children, but you can help your mother. And then it liberates everybody in that village. Now they've all moved on to better, and you come back and you're like, wow, I remember when this used to be different. You don't have to raise it to the ground in order for things to change. Take that one as it resonates, because again, there are different levels to everything, girl. Some things, maybe they need a purification by fire. Some things just need the warmth of the sun to grow, a warmth that they never experienced before. Use your own intuition, guidance, discernment. Talk to your guides to figure out which way it's supposed to go. That ain't a Patrick question that he can answer. Hardtaker is left at the bottom. Hardtaker is number 53. 51, because Treadle's in reverse. 52 of Brahm, and 53 of Hardtaker. Sobbing, throbbing, dark spots grab hold of the heart, crushing the soul's freedom. Dread threads reach out with serpentined, hooked fangs that sink and pierce deep. Why? Cries the choking soul. But the deep dark hole opens wider, and anger tangles itself around, cutting harsh lines into the flesh, victimizing us. It clings and wrings out each drop of love from every thought. What's at the bottom of the deck now? Just curious. Leaf shade. Leaf shade, cradled. Cradled neath the comforting branches of trees stretching, providing peace, shelter, wisdom, and direction. Contemplate the rate at which a tree breathes and lives. Join its calming pace by allowing nature's healing to kiss us all deep inside. Healing herbs and tinctures are shared with us by plant spirits whispering on a sultry breeze under their sacred shaded foliage. This took an interesting turn, Cancer. This is one of those new runes. This is one of the runes that don't fit in Weirdhammer because it's curved. This, on the other hand, does fit in Weirdhammer because it isn't. Not everything that obstructs darkness is light, Cancer. Meaning, trust your intuition. It goes back to that, and then Gifu is under Leaf Shade. Leaf Shade slid off and revealed Gifu. Look at all the light in there. So I love that. But again, this is one that actually fits in Wordhammer. It could be this one. It can be this one. Pick your cross. It doesn't matter. So what's interesting is it's almost like maybe that's the case. You start your journey. You're doing all this healing. But there's still something inside of you emotionally. There's a wound that's never addressed, and so it continues to fester. Maybe that it's almost like you try to dispel darkness by surrounding it with light in this word hammer. But all that does is create shadow. It doesn't do anything to remove the darkness. It's like it's something that needs to be abstracted. You can't just surround it with other things and make it all better. Will it feel marginally better? Yes. And you may make it a certain way, but it feels like that kernel is always there because it was never addressed. This is where spirituality, religion can sometimes fail us. When it medicates with things instead of leading us to practices of substance. It's effectively putting a bandage on a wound that's way too big for a bandage, or that it's like you're asking more of a bandage than a bandage is designed to do. Right? You can't squeeze more out of a bandage than what a bandage can give you. And so maybe that involves, maybe that's again where that like, that frustration was coming in, where it's like I'm saying all the affirmations, I'm doing all of the things that I'm supposed to do. Why do I still feel this way? Because the truth of it was never addressed. What's the most interesting is resolution lies in the place that you left in the first place. Brahm only led to heartache, which is half of this Brahm. It's the right half. The solution, it's almost like you reach a point where you discover that it was inside of you all along. This could be like maybe there was a family member who was different or who escaped or whatever. And maybe it's like, again, I'm using family as an example, take it how it resonates, if it resonates, and apply it where you need to. But maybe it's like that family was always ostracized, that family member. Or it was like, oh, we don't talk to them, we don't deal with them, they think that they're better than us, or they abandon us, or whatever. In reality, they're just not. It feels like it's the person that left the village. It's the one who went out and explored and found that there are other ways to deal with things. And knowing how things were, they know firsthand personally that it's better to deal with things a different way, or that there are more options than you think you have. But for those who were hurting, they only saw it as like abandonment or whatever. But then it's like you realize that like that person was sort of always in the family, or like somebody who's like into it or whatever. And because they're closer to you by blood, it feels like it's like because they're closer to you by blood, they're not a more kindred spirit. They have a closer perspective on like where you're coming from. They have a better idea of the specifics and the details. So what worked for someone else, or what's recommended to you by other people, it might, because we're switching realms here, it might work for them in their realm, or maybe it worked up until a certain point, but now you have to do something differently. You have to fine tune it. You have to tweak it, because there's something in this that was not being addressed. And it's because that remains unaddressed that things can't fully click into place. It's almost like there's a key that you're trying to put in a lock and you're twisting and it's not unlocking, and you're like, I know this is the right key. Like, why isn't this working? It feels like there's a piece of debris stuck inside of the lock. So the key doesn't fully go where it needs to fully disengage the lock. And that's why it's not unlocking. But it's like the frustration of knowing that you have the right key for this lock. It feels like it causes the wound to like fester at the same time. Or it's like there's a pang that's felt, but you don't know why. But again, that's why I say trust your intuition and your guidance. Maybe now the answer will be made. Maybe the answer will come to you now. And it may be something that you connected to at one point, but that you forgot about. And it isn't necessarily the case. It doesn't have to be the case that you are literally the only person that this works for, or you're the only one that knows. It might just be that you haven't connected with, met anyone yet in your journey who is similar in that way. Maybe it was for you to discover on your journey so that you can take it back to your village. And it wouldn't be the same if it were just handed to you or if it was just given to you. I think that's why the hermit is here in this. That's why the hermit was behind this Five of Wands. Something about the thing that binds you is the same thing that will free you in a way. And just like how other things didn't work for you, they might not necessarily work for wherever you're taking it. I don't know. There's something for you to discover, Cancer. And if it is your journey to discover it, then it's almost like the universe will purposefully conspire and contort itself to make sure that you don't get anything before you are meant to. So I'm going to end this by pulling before and after the High Priestess in the Crow Tarot. The World, the Ten of Pentacles, the High Priestess. Ten of Pentacles and Temperance. Well, I'll do the World too because it's literally right there. And then the Eight of Swords. The thing that you couldn't see. And it's like, notice that the ribbons of the world are tying this crow here in the Eight of Swords. Tying and blinding the crow in the Eight of Swords. The creature that is naturally meant to fly cannot fly. The creature that has a keen eye cannot see. And it's because of the world. It's because of your experience. See, I feel like these two are just, they're clarifying for me that if I would have used this deck to try to read this, it wouldn't have given you anything that you didn't already experience in that Wertheimer pattern. It would have only given you the things that you already knew. It would have led you to like go on to that path. The Ten of Pentacles and Temperance. It feels like it's something that people actually knew. So maybe that family member did come back, and maybe there was a point in time when they did almost inspire a change in somebody, but maybe it was too difficult. It was too hard. They didn't have the patience. And so it didn't work for them. But because you've already aged, matured, and healed, because you've already done most of this temperance up front, your experience isn't going to be the same. And again, what's interesting is like you're already in Alfheim. It's almost like you're already, it's this energy where it was like you already have what you needed to escape. You just didn't see it. A little bit of patience, a little bit of TLC, a little bit of dedication, and you'll get what you need. And with the Ten of Pentacles, that definitely brings a shift in generational or familial relationships. The Ten of Pentacles is a card of so much abundance that it lasts for multiple generations. It's a card of legacies and dynasties. Love that. So that's what I got for you, Cancer. I hope you have an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And until next time, I hope that you find whatever it is you need along your path, journey, your way. I hope that you are open to those revelations that you need to have, number one. And I hope that you can set, honestly, I'm surprised at like a Two of Pentacles or like a Queen of Swords. It feels like a minor justice energy. Could be like a court card justice. It feels like minor justice because it's weighing out everything that you've experienced in this new world and all that you knew previously. And it feels like your solution lies somewhere in between. But it's almost like take what you know back to where you were, and then you'll see the thing. It's almost like maybe that's this too. It's like if you go back to where you were with as who you are now, you'll see the thing almost immediately. It feels like that's how much it stands out, but you wouldn't see it as discontinuous or as what's the word? Not discongruous, incongruent. You wouldn't see it as like incongruent if you didn't know or if you hadn't experienced anything else. But I think that's the important, or that's the thing that can be difficult whenever we revisit the past. It can be difficult sometimes for us to go as the healed version of ourselves that we are now, rather than to revert to who we were then. That's why triggers can be so difficult to work with sometimes, or difficult to overcome sometimes. Because when we get triggered, it's almost like we revert to a previous version of ourselves. We become again who we used to be. And so those same feelings of paralysis and powerlessness, they hit us again, but it's different when you've experienced different, where you know that it's not supposed to be that way. You need to take yourself. So now this almost morphs a little bit, because this crow was looking back on all the ones that were looking to the future. There's something that you've gained with this crown. It's like you've built this life outside of this old world. This is also a world card energy. That's the old world, the Elder Flathark, all of the rooms that fit in this. I'm trying so hard to avoid the word matrix, by the way. Just honestly, I am. All of the ones that fit inside this diagram. But as you are now, you can go back and you can, first of all, you can liberate and free yourself. But you can handle it now. You can see the thing now. You're not who you used to be. Own it. Maybe that'll be the title. I don't know. See you, Cancer. Bye.